Hey, welcome to another edition of the Scott Hamilton Show as we continue just barreling deeper into 2026. Really cool time of the year. There's so much going on in college athletics, so much going on in professional football. NASCAR's getting ready to crank up. Golf will be starting before we know it. Just a really cool time of the year. But it's especially a hot time for college football. We've got a lot to get to with regards to that. Go ahead and get our little headlines up. There you go. You can see it. Look at that. Got an official rundown. How about that? The college football playoff semifinals are set after, again, one just absolutely fantastic quarterfinal. I know there were a couple blowouts, but man, I just thought the stories around those were compelling, and the games were, even in blowouts, they were interesting. Maybe it's just because I'm so glad to have a playoff. I remember when we didn't have a playoff. College football playoff semifinals, Peach Bowl, number 5 Oregon versus number 1 Indiana. That'll be Friday, 7:30 kickoff. Then the Fiesta Bowl the following day, Ole Miss and Miami, also a 7:30 kickoff. Who among us, and I deal a lot with college football, who among us saw these 4 teams as the final 4 teams? Maybe we projected Indiana back in August. Maybe we projected Ole Miss or Oregon or perhaps even Miami. But these 4? And who projected that the Big Ten would have one half of the Final Four bracket? Again, anybody that says they knew that, their pants are about to catch on fire. They're lying. We're going to break down these playoffs and this 12-team structure and what would be better? How could we make this system a little more polished? What could we do? We're going to break all that down with Dave Clawson, former head coach at Wake Forest. He's going to join us in a few minutes. I want to get his take on the Final Four, get his take on the playoff system, and also get his take on the transfer portal and NIL and all the things that pushed him out of coaching. I'm not saying he's done coaching, but I think he needed a break when he stepped away about 13 months ago. He said the system as it was becoming wasn't something that he really wanted to be a part of at that time. Has he changed his perspective after spending a year working in the media? Does really good work for the ACC Network and ESPN. Has his perspective changed after sitting back, watching it from the outside, and realizing that this is the way things are done? It's just it. This is the system. This is how it works. You either adapt or you die. We'll ask Dave Clawson when he comes aboard in a few moments. Transfer portal opened. Already some movement there. But before we get to that, this is a really important piece of news in the Palmetto State, South Carolina. Multiple reports that Clemson is hiring Chad Morris to be its offensive coordinator. Remember, Clemson fired Garrett Riley, just about a week ago, I guess, shortly after Clemson lost in the Pinstripe Bowl to Penn State. Now they're running it back with Chad Morris. He was the OC there and quarterback coach for 4 seasons, 2011 to 2014. And it was a really impactful period for Clemson. Tigers went 42-11 during that span, didn't win any national titles as they did in the following years, but it set the stage for the offense, that up-tempo offense that co-offensive coordinators Tony Elliott and Jeff Scott ran. And it also, during this time, Chad Morris developed quarterbacks. He developed Taj Boyd. He developed Deshaun Watson, and he always had a 1,000-yard receiver. Now, granted, they were dudes, those guys, but the system is there to allow that kind of production, that kind of performance. Is that what Dabo's hoping to get this time around? He made some interesting comments back in November when he was doing his regular season postmortem, and I think it was very telling. He talked about trusting his instincts and going back to the things that really helped him succeed at the beginning of his tenure. And now I think it's worth revisiting today, now that he's bringing back Chad Morris. Here's Dabo back in November. This is what he said at the time about he needed to go back to what had worked previously for him.
Really fortunate to get another year. But I made some decisions that were critical and some that weren't very popular, But what I believed And that's honestly probably something that I've probably not done. If I evaluate myself, I've probably gotten away a little bit away from my instincts and not trusting some of my instincts. And that's one of my things I've got to get back to. And some people say I'm stubborn, but I think I have conviction. There's a difference.
There is a difference. There is a difference, but is he realizing though that sometimes he is just being stubborn? We'll find out. I like the move. I don't hate the move. I don't. Some people should say you should be going forward instead of going backward at this time. But I think this is an opportunity, though, to go to something that's been proven to work, a guy who knows the culture, and who might also be bringing a quarterback with him. Chandler Morris, he's trying to get another year of eligibility, a sixth year. He's at Virginia. Would this be a handcuff deal, a 2-for-1? That's enticing, and that's curious. So we'll investigate that as we get more news. We'll talk more about that maybe. There's a meeting on Monday to presumably approve the hire at the university level. So maybe we can discuss it at that point. What else is going on? Let's take a look here. Go back to our old rundown. Oh, the portal. I mean, this is significant. Okay, the portal's open. We know it's open. And we finally got like a big name moving. It just happened late Saturday. Drew Mestmaker. He's leaving North Texas. He's going to join his old coach up at Eric Morris up at Oklahoma State. 4,379 yards, 34 touchdowns, 72 completions. Oh, by the way, he's a freshman. He's got 3 years left. That would be significant for Oklahoma State because they're trying to just shake off this dreadful last few years they had under Mike Gundy. I mean, it was putrid. 1-11 last year. Not great. But, as history has shown us that you can turn that around very quickly, especially if you're bringing in a quarterback like this, somebody who's already got some bona fides. We'll see how that plays out. Will this be the first big domino? That's a question I have. And he's not a name like a Sam Levitt or a Dylan Raiola, but he's a big name. He is a name, and he's a quarterback. And there's going to be a run on quarterbacks. I promise you that. But I'm wondering, though, are we going to see a lot of movement here pretty quickly? Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback of Cincinnati, he's the one that most people are saying will set the market. They'll say that will set the market. And then wherever he ends up going, wherever he's going to go, then there's going to be a run on all these other guys. Maybe that's how it'll work out. There's so many different plans or strategies or goals, really. That's probably the best word for the transfer portal when it comes to individual teams. You've got Texas, who's going to do all it can to get the dudes to supplement and complement Arch Manning. Reports that Cam Coleman, the outstanding wide receiver at Auburn, was on campus on Friday, was supposed to be back on Saturday. That would be a huge weapon. Louisville running back Isaac Brown, also likely to go to Texas again, according to various reports. And then there's a bunch of others. I can see Texas going all in and getting these weapons to complement Arch Manning and take advantage of him while you've got him. And, of course, also hopefully any success they have during this period, they're able to sustain it and create some infrastructure. But that's diving deep into it. What's Indiana do? Fernando Mendoza, he's not going to be around. Reports are they go after Josh Hoover at Texas Christian at TCU. And we've seen what Cignetti can do with these quarterbacks. He's good at identifying and developing quarterbacks and doing it quickly. Curtis Rourke, his first year, last year, he was from Ohio University. He's a Bobcat in the MAC. Mendoza came from Cal. So if they get someone like Josh Hoover, who I think is the 7th rated quarterback in the portal, 7th, according to 247 Sports, that's a nice get, especially if Cignetti can do his magic again. Penn State, seems to be destined to get Rocco Becht from Iowa State and a whole bunch of other Cyclones. They're following Matt Campbell, the new coach of the Nittany Lions. But what does that mean for Iowa State? Iowa State, last count, had more than 50 guys in the portal. Whew. Now, some of those just might be exploratory, but I have to think that when you have that many guys in the portal, the odds are pretty good that the majority of them are not coming back. So they're going to have to do some work to fix that. And then I mentioned Chandler Morris at Virginia. Virginia's got some other guys hopping in the portal. Will they be able to restock and make another run for an ACC title as they did this year? It just kind of came out of nowhere. It's going to move hot. It's going to move fast. And it's, as I said earlier in earlier episodes, that they've got to do it quick. They've only got the one window. They've got to get enrolled in school. They got to visit the school if they're doing any due diligence, or maybe not. Maybe they just let their agents do all the advanced work, or maybe it just comes down to how much are you going to pay me? Maybe phone calls and Zooms expedite the process. I don't know. But they've got a lot to do between now and when that portal period ends on January 16th. A lot to get done. And that just, it's clear as glass that they make these announcements in December so that other schools know they're available, they're looking, they're on the market, and then there's backdoor deals going on with agents, yada, yada, yada. They're going to have to put guardrails up. They're going to have to figure out a better way. That's one of the topics we'll talk about with Dave Clawson when he joins us in a few moments. I'm going to get his take on the transfer portal, get his take on college football playoff, the teams in the college football playoff, and ask him if he would be on that committee, that selection committee. Would he be willing to be one of the people who has to be sequestered in that hotel in Texas each week and put together the rankings? I'm wondering if Dave Clawson would do it. I think he'd be great. What does he think? Dave Clawson going to join us on the other side. Stick around.
Golfers, IndyCar Tim here. I want to talk to you a little bit about Golf Central Magazine. It's not just a golf magazine. It's the magazine for everything: turf, travel, philanthropy, and lifestyle. Head over to golfcentralmag.com and check out the latest issue. Some of the regular features in Golf Central Magazine: the Golf Bachelorette of the Month, the Golf Bachelor of the Month, the Golf Cart Girl of the Month, Golf History, Grip It and Sip It. So head over to golfcentralmag.com. It's free. It's the magazine for everything: turf, travel, philanthropy, and lifestyle. Golf Central Magazine at golfcentralmag.com. We'll see you there.
Hey folks, let me tell you about Bay Area Modern Medical Center, a very different kind of approach to primary care. Personalized preventative medicine, not a one-pill-fits-all mentality. Christopher Lugo and his experienced medical staff are proactive in looking at issues before they become a problem, encouraging a healthy lifestyle with proper diet, supplements, and exercise to optimize your active lifestyle. Rather than the impersonal, rushed approach, you will be the only patient and will have our full attention. That's new. Getting old is inevitable, but feeling and looking old is avoidable. Bay Area Modern Medical Centers are experts in anti-aging regenerative medicine that optimizes your body's performance in many areas. So call for an appointment to get started on a journey back to full health and a happy life with a new, modern way of healthcare. Call 844-977-3477 or go to BAMMC.com. That's 844-977-3477 or BAMMC.com.
Today's show is brought to you by Tomstown, a premier craft distillery based in Kansas City, Missouri. Discover their award-winning lineup, including double oaked bourbon, botanical gin, and double grain vodka, named the best craft vodka by the readers of USA Today. Available for online delivery in 40 states. Visit toms-town.com or their Kansas City distillery to explore more. Elevate your game with Tomstown, where history meets innovation. Please enjoy responsibly.
Hello, folks. Let's talk a little bit about turf life. What is turf life? It's pretty much if your life involves turf in any way, shape, or form, you live the turf life. Go ahead and brand yourself with the turf life. Maybe a back window decal, maybe a hat. You know where you can get those kinds of things to showcase that your life revolves around sports and or anything that involves sports. If it's a sports business or sports education or just your enjoyment of the outdoors, head over to turflifeclub.com. turflife.com. Become a turf head. Join the club today. You can do that by going to that said website that I just told you to go to. You can snag your window decal like I was talking about, or any of your other Turf Life accessories. Show everybody that you live the turf life, and we'll see you there, over there at that turflifeclub.com.
Although it may seem tempting to go without health care insurance, the financial risk far outweighs the gain you may experience. For example, did you know if you simply broke your leg, it could cost you nearly $7,500? Put on top of that a hospital stay, you could be looking at $10,000 to $15,000. Ensuring that you don't go uncovered is so important, as according to CNBC, high medical bills are the highest contributing factor to why Americans end up taking money out of their retirement savings, or worse, find themselves filing bankruptcy. So go to don'tgouncovered.com or call 800-669-1505. Now, depending on your income, you can get plans for zero premium. Our experts will guide you through the process effortlessly. They will shop many plans and find the one that's right for you. I called and I have full health coverage through Florida Blue for zero monthly premium. It's a free call. So why go uncovered? It's a huge risk. Go to don'tgouncovered.com or call 800-669-1505. That's 800-669-1505.
Orion Golf Management Solutions. Orion Management Solutions has tailored its service packages just like it tailors its approach to customers. Some owners need more supervision, while others need periodic assessment of their short-term and long-term strategies and programs. Orion can be called in to develop a business plan with the existing staff, or we can assist with the daily management of a facility or event. Either way, we make sure the client is satisfied and understands the direction the facility needs to go in order to achieve the owner's goals. Orion Management Solutions can help with owner assistance service solutions, daily course management, business plan development, monthly operations, or as-needed consulting services. Whatever your need, Orion Golf Management Solutions can help. Check out oriongolf.com.
Let's go.
Right now, back to the show on FanStream Sports.
Joining us now, he's, in my opinion, the most successful coach in Wake Forest history. He turned that program around, put together its best run of success, at least in the modern era. Now he's doing television for some of the ESPN properties. Hopefully he'll get back in the game, but until then, he's getting on our little program here. It's Coach Dave Clawson. Dave, Happy New Year. Appreciate your time. And my first question for you is pretty cut and dry. When you look at these Final Four teams in the college football playoff, what are your first impressions?
Just it's a new era in college football. You had all these years that every year it was Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and these are four teams that none of them have won it in 20 years. And so I think there's been a flattening out at the very top of college football. I think in the past there were maybe three or four teams that could win a national championship, and now there's maybe 12 to 14, and clearly these are four of them, and they all have transfer quarterbacks. So finding your own and growing your own is no longer the way to do it at the quarterback position.
These things, though, that have enabled these programs to get to this point, to get transfer quarterbacks and to build their rosters, basically by luring guys in with the promise of NIL money and this, that, and the other. Those are some of the things, though, that kind of made you take a break to step back from coaching. Have you reevaluated during this period you haven't been coaching about how things are now and how your position is with it, or how are you looking at it now, I guess is my question.
Well, I think it's a little better now than when I stepped out. Our last couple of years at Wake, we were playing teams that had, 10, 15 times the amount of money we did, and it was impossible to keep your good players. What's really changed is the revenue share. That now that teams can directly pay players, not everybody has the same amount, but people don't have 5 and 10 times what other schools have. You still need to find a way to have a second bucket, and the teams that are still winning and still playing, I think, have done that very well. But it's a much flatter landscape than it was when I left. I think our last year there, There was games we played that maybe the other team's quarterback made more than our entire team, and that's no longer the case because of revenue share. That things are a little more even. Again, I think it's an extra commitment if you want to win a national championship, but I think every team that's a Power Four team that is fully participating in revenue share has a much better opportunity to win than the couple of years there that when NIL started and revenue share began.
I look at it as, I mean, we're basically in a professional game now. I mean, they are getting paid and they go wherever they want pretty much unencumbered. Should we just embrace the professional model? I mean, the NFL model works great. Should we just go all in and try to emulate that situation and actually have contracts and have a playoff structure that has divisions and guaranteed spots for division winners and so on? What would you do if you were the grand poobah, Dave, of college football? How would you structure things?
If I was the grand
Yeah,
poobah of college
yeah.
football, first of all, I would change the calendar. I would start earlier and finish sooner. It is college football in that these players still go to class, and the season does not mesh well with a semester setup. Even with the one portal, that players can enter the portal until January 16th. There's schools that will have started class before then. And so it still doesn't work the way it was intended. And football used to be a one semester sport. And so I think if there's any way that you could start earlier, because they already have week 0 games, and try to finish right around New Year's, and let's get back to making it a one semester sport. And I do think at some point there needs to be collective bargaining. Um, the problem is there are contracts, and players sign contracts, but they break them. And by the same token, schools give contracts and then they cut kids. And so it's quasi-professional, and I think they should just say, we are what we are. It is professional football. Let's embrace a model much more similar to the NFL. And so if a school wants to commit, 2 years and $6 million to a player, they're on the hook for those 2 years, but the player is also then committed for those 2 years. And just like coaches that have contracts, if they want to get out of it, there can be buyout or back provisions in the contract that if they want to get out of it, there's a cost.
Yeah, it sends mixed signals when you talk about being a team and being devoted to a team and dedicated to a team, but there's hypocrisy all around. Dave, just a couple more questions, please. And this is the second year of the 12-team playoff. This year polished a little better than the first year because of the seeding. They got that mess lined out. Is there a better way to do it? If you could fix the playoff and the way it's structured, how would you do it in Dave Clawson world?
Well, again, I think if it was earlier, it would be better, because I think what stinks right now is you have all these games that, whether it's the head coach or the coordinators, they no longer work at the school that made the playoffs. I've always said you got to figure out a way to make the season sacred. And that means that coaches stick with their teams throughout the season, wherever that ends. Players stick with their teams and they don't have to go into the portal before it ends. If there's any way of, again, moving this thing up and finishing it earlier and allowing coaches and players to finish what they started, that's part of the values that you teach in athletics, that if you start with a team, you finish with a team, and the calendar does not allow that to happen. I think the other thing, and this is where expansion will happen, is the teams that have had buys are now 1-7. Indiana is the only team that won, and there's a lot of data and research on this. But when teams have bye weeks, they have a less likely chance of winning the next game than if they played. And this is the reason a lot of schools before their rival game will play, an FCS or a group of 5 team. The SEC does that a lot. And I just think, like, for some of these teams, they have 24 days off between games. You get out of a rhythm, and having a successful year and having a bye, is almost a penalty. And so, maybe you expand this thing to 16 teams, and that way nobody takes 2 or 3 weeks off from not playing, because that's not football. I used to not like bye weeks. I didn't want our best team that we had to play to be after a bye week, because I always felt your team was out of rhythm. And, and there's been studies done that statistically that is true. You don't want to have a bye week before your biggest game.
Yeah, momentum is a heck of a thing. And it's not even a week, though, to your point in the playoff. It's a bye 3 weeks, 24 days. That's almost like breaking training camp and then taking a month off and then, okay, it's ready to play our game. I mean, it's kind of like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. Dave, just to
Well, we used to always scrimmage 10 days before our first game just for that reason. So we wouldn't get out of too much of a rhythm. And so, again, I'm sure some schools are doing that. And again, that can be looked at as an excuse, because Indiana, certainly the off time in the bye week did not affect them at all. They looked as good as ever. But it is, you get out of a rhythm, and no other sport does that. No other sport takes 3 or 4 weeks off and then starts their championship segment.
I think, and you mentioned Indiana, when as soon as they won the Big Ten and they were getting the trophy, that was Cignetti's message that he has 3 weeks to keep his team hungry. So you have to think he drove them pretty hard for those 3 weeks. And you bring around my next question, Dave, and I can tell you're getting used to being in the media because you've teed this topic up perfectly. Can we make too much of the challenge that Pete Golding is undertaking? Because I think of all the coaches involved right now, what he's accomplishing is the most impressive. I can't imagine him stepping into this position, being a first-time head coach, and dealing with all the other outside stuff, and yet they win.
What I think he's doing, which is really smart, is he is still coordinating the defense. I think Charlie Weiss Jr. has done a masterful job of play calling and play designing. I thought he called a great game the other night against Georgia, and especially with a minute left. Um, and the other thing that it appears that he's done is, he has Joe Judge on the staff, who was the head coach of the Giants and was with New England with Belichick for a long time. It seems like he's kind of delegated some of the clock management stuff to him. So I think what he's done is really smart, is saying, okay, Charlie Weiss has called plays all year. He's going to keep doing that. I've run the defense all year. I'm going to keep doing that. What we're missing is who's the head guy, the head coach that's kind of managed games and situations. And I think he's delegated part of that, which I think is really smart, because it's really hard to be an offensive or a defensive play caller and to manage the game. Timeouts. Do you go for it on fourth down? What do you do with the analytics? And so I think he's saying, this is the formula that got us to this point, and let's try not to disrupt it as much as we can.
I didn't think it would work against Georgia when, and I don't know if you recall, Dave, but they had the ball, they being Ole Miss, late in the first half, and they were going to try to at least get in position for that kid to try one of his wacky long field goals, and they couldn't get it off. And I thought maybe that was a situation there where if Pete Golding were more of the center of everything instead of having to worry about calling defense and this, that, and the other, I thought they might have been able to pull it off then. But they ended up winning. So
yeah, I guess I look at that differently, is that I think that was one player who they threw the ball to that in the heat of the moment forgot the situation in the game, right? Because any other time during the 2 minute, you want a player to fight for yardage. And I just think that's one young man in the heat of the moment that made a really bad decision. I'm sure that stuff was coached. And if you looked at him afterwards, Joe Judge's reaction, like, I can't believe this young man just did that.
yeah,
But that's part of the beauty of coaching college age players, is guess what? They don't always do exactly what you coach them to do.
it's like if you get a penalty,
So,
make sure it's an aggressive penalty. Don't do a pre-snap.
I didn't, it's funny, every time in spring practice and in fall camp, we would run a 2 minute drill. We'd cover the thing the night before in the meeting, we'd show film on it. And I almost intentionally would want the quarterback to throw a check down and have the running back not get out of bounds, so I could lose my mind in front of the whole team. because I wanted that to happen in practice before it happened in the game. And inevitably, we'd have a back in there or a tight end on the check down that had an opportunity to get out of bounds, and they wouldn't, and it would cost us the 2-minute drive. And like I said, I almost wanted that to happen to make it a teachable, coachable moment.
That is the most Dave Clawson story I've ever heard. You wanted to practice losing your mind in case that happened.
Well, I knew it would happen, and it would always be with a younger player. It would always be with, a redshirt freshman or a freshman who was maybe in there for the first time, who every football instinct in their body told them fight for more yardage. And, 2 minutes is the one situation that the clock is more important than yards. So, we always used to say the only time that you cut it upfield is if you're guaranteeing a first down or it's on fourth down and you have to get the first down to continue the drive. So you would take that exact same play and say, this is a dumb blank play, unless it's fourth down. That's the only time that's the proper cut.
My last question, Dave, would you ever be on the playoff selection committee?
Yeah, I would. But it's hard to do that with what I'm doing now. That right now I work for the ACC Network, which is part of ESPN, and I've really enjoyed that studio work. And the schedule of the committee would make that impossible, or to be unbiased. Because when you're working for the ACC Network, and I have my ACC football hat on right now, it's really hard to be objective. And we root for the conference. It was great for the ACC Network for Miami to beat Ohio State, and I was down at the Cotton Bowl helping call that game. And again, you try to call the game objectively, but when you work for the ACC Network, you root for ACC teams. So I was very excited to see Miami win, and I just don't think you could be objective in that meeting room on that selection committee if I have the position I currently have. Now, at what point they get rid of me, and if the committee would want me to join, that would certainly be an honor.
Well, Dave, you're doing an excellent job on television, and I really appreciate your time today. And I hope we catch up soon, man. I really do. Let's go play some golf or do something. You've always been one of my favorite people.
Well, thank you very much. And I can remember when I first got to Wake Forest, one of my very first live radio interviews was with you, right outside near Clemens there. And you were always very good to me. And heck, Scott, I have a lot more free time than I had for the past 36 years. So I'd love to do that.
All right. It's Dave Clawson, former Wake Forest football coach, now for the ACC Network. Absolutely great segment with Dave Clawson. Just one of the coolest guys in all of college football, one of the smartest guys in all of college football, just so prepared and just always on point, always has a plan. I remember when he first got the job at Wake Forest, and this is such a Dave anecdote. He had a meeting with his staff, and they're coming in like all new coaches, and they have to sit down and figure out how they are going to reinvigorate this program that had fallen off in the last 2 years of Jim Grobe's tenure. And they had a meeting on how to hold the football, not just how to hold the football, how to coach holding the football properly. They called it how to hold the football the Demon Deacon way. Tuck it and all this nose, blah, blah, blah. And they spent almost 2 hours on that. Just that one thing on how to properly coach it. Not only the technique, but how they should communicate it efficiently. The terminology, the wordage, the verbiage, whatever, how you ever want to frame that. They spent 45 minutes to 2 hours doing that. But that's who he is. He's always on point. He's always prepared. He's always honest. Dave Clawson will not lie to you. He might not tell you everything, unless you ask him, and what coach doesn't do that, but he won't lie to you. And he's really been a revelation on TV. I mean, his studio work with Tom Luganbill, it's next level. It is absolutely next level. It is wonderful. So I enjoy him on television, but at the same time, the game is poorer for not having him on the sideline. And you have to wonder, and I was texting with another coach earlier today, one of his former peers, and his response was that he would win big, he being Dave Clawson. He would win big if he were at a premier program. I'm looking at it now. He's the best. If he was at a premier program, he'd win big. That's high praise. This guy has won a lot of ball games without naming names. So we'll have to be sure to get Dave back the closer we get to the national championship game. Speaking of Wake Forest, Wake Forest won its bowl game on Friday night. The Deacs beat Mississippi State 43-21 in the Duke's Mayo Bowl, and really a good first year for Jake Dickert, 9-4 overall, 4-4 in the ACC. First season with the Deacs, coming from Washington State to Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I mean, just all the way across the country. Just a good way to begin his tenure. Very good way. And I want to say, and let me fact check myself before I get too deep in the weeds. I want to say the Deacons beat Virginia. And Virginia went on to play for the ACC championship, high-ranked team. So that's a good way to get off on the right foot in the triangle. Let me look this up. Okay, the Deacs lost to Florida State. They lost to Georgia Tech. They lost to NC State. They did. They beat Virginia 16-9 on November 8th. Wow. At Virginia. Virginia was ranked 14th at the time. So it's good. There's an enthusiasm around that program under Jake Dickert, but there's a lot of enthusiasm at the bowl game. And these bowl games are becoming more extravagant, more wild and raucous. And I think about all the stuff going on at the Pop-Tart Bowl, all the little Cheez-Its that are around that bowl game. Just there's getting to be these little, gimmicks or however you want to word it with these bowl games. And they kind of have to do it. They kind of have to do it in order to remain relevant, at least when it comes to gathering the interest of the average football fan. The college football playoff has become the end-all, be-all, and everything is in the shadow of that, especially when these games, you see more and more players opting out, or you see teams opting out entirely. Notre Dame. So anything you can do to drum up interest, to get attention, it's going to keep these games relevant. So I don't hate it, man. And if they want to dump a bucket of mayonnaise on the winning coach at the Duke's Mayo Bowl, I am 100% good with it. Here was Jake Dickert's reaction when he, God love his heart, when he got the ceremonial dump of mayonnaise after winning the game.
What you got with you, Coach?
I got my kid. This is my daughter, Riley. This is my son, Jet. This is my son, Jace. We're ready for the Mayo Bowl.
Some emotional support. Oh, boy. 4.5 gallons of pure white goodness. Oh! Whoa! Coach, how does that taste?
It tastes like sweet victory. That's all I know.
It tastes like sweet victory. Wow. It tastes like sweet victory. I don't know if that would be my reaction, but I guess winning does cure a lot of things, even being doused with a bucket of mayonnaise. At least it's Duke's mayonnaise. Good on the Deacons. If I ever have the opportunity, I need to ask Nick Saban if they would have participated in that game, would he have allowed himself to be doused with a big cooler of Duke's mayonnaise? I don't know. That's it for the Scott Hamilton Show. Future episodes, we're going to continue to look at the college football playoff, look at the transfer portal. I want to dive deeper into this deal at Clemson with the change at offensive coordinator. I think that's significant, and I'm wondering if this will impact the route they take with getting a quarterback. If he does bring Chandler Morris with him, Does that give Dabo an out almost of like, well, I used the portal, but I didn't use the portal to get a quarterback? He's straddling both sides of the fence with that. That'll be an interesting topic to explore. I want to thank Dave Clawson for joining us. Check him out on the ACC Network and some other ESPN properties here, there, and everywhere during college football season. But until next time, everybody be safe.